Lindsey Graham is an unstable madman. I think we've known that for a while, that much like every other war-crazed Republican, Lindsey Graham is angry and vengeful and so small and insecure that the only way he can feel comfortable with himself is through the military-industrial complex. It is why he broke down today on television as Donald Trump's threats against every single Republican senator are making Lindsey Graham spiral. We're going to get into it all and how Donald Trump's warpath has found its way to the Senate. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now, there is a lot to get into that has Lindsey Graham melting down, and we're going to get to that, but I think it's important that we start with one of the Republican senators who is in part causing Donald Trump to make this extreme threat, and that is Rand Paul, who had this to say about Greenland this morning.
I can get you on Greenland. You said this week you'll do everything to stop any kind of military takeover of Greenland. The White House said that was not off the table, but do you actually think he would use military force, or are we overreacting to that?
I would hope not. But let's say you wanted to buy Greenland, and I'm not disputing that that might be something we might want, to buy Greenland. You don't get there by angering and denigrating the people who live there and saying, we're going to march the Marines in and take it if you don't sell it to us. It doesn't make them very willing sellers. So really, if your goal is somehow we're going to rattle the saber and then they're going to sell it to us, I think it's having the opposite effect. I think you'd be hard-pressed to find someone in Greenland for it, but you'd also be hard-pressed to find somebody in Washington who's for a military invasion on either side of the aisle. So I think there'll be enough pressure to stop it. But the problem is they keep rattling the saber. They keep saying, we're going to do this. We keep this in our armamentarium that we will, reserve the right to invade Greenland. And that gets back to the War Powers Act. That's why this debate's so important, because it's not just about Venezuela. It's about Venezuela. It's about Greenland. It's about Colombia. It's about Cuba. It's about whether or not the people get a say in whether we go to war.
Okay, thank you.
Rand Paul is causing me a lot of problems because I have to keep giving him credit, and I don't want to, but he is right. Donald Trump doesn't do diplomacy. The only diplomacy that Donald Trump does is the kind in which, he ends up with a $400 million Saudi jet. Like that's it. Donald Trump does the diplomacy where he threatens a country and then they go and give him like a crown, and then he cuts a deal that ultimately hurts Americans. By the way, we're down 65,000 manufacturing jobs in the past year, thanks to Trump and his tariffs and those diplomatic deals he's doing, all those deals that haven't actually come. But that's one thing. Rand Paul is right. There is no reason to be both going to war with Greenland, but also buying Greenland. There's no purpose in this whole Greenland thing. Republicans like to talk about the territorial advantage. Well, it's a territorial advantage when we're talking about Russia. So is Ukraine, and that's right next to it, and they're already our allies. So maybe? Thoughts there? No, of course not. What Donald Trump wants to do has nothing to do with territory. It has nothing to do with global strategy or foreign policy. Donald Trump just wants to expand his authoritarian project and have all the power possible. J.D. Vance wants the same. It's why he said this.
Technicality than any disagreement in policy. If you look at the people who actually voted, every single one of them have supported the administration's plan. Second of all, as the president, I believe himself has already said, every president, Democrat or Republican, believes the War Powers Act is fundamentally a fake and unconstitutional law. It's not going to change anything about how we conduct foreign policy over the next couple of weeks, the next couple of months, and that'll continue to be how we approach things. Go ahead.
I hate to be the guy that's like talking about how much he loves the institutions and, the institutions, and we got to protect the sanctity of the Senate, because what has that inherently, racist body ever done for us? Not a lot. But J.D. Vance is advocating, and Donald Trump is, of course, as well, to take all power away from the legislative process in an effort to make sure that there are no longer any checks on themselves. But what they don't understand is that's a two-way street, and when Democrats come into power, I think they should go maybe not as far as Donald Trump in terms of breaking every single law, but showing, well, you've expanded the chief executive's role, and so we will continue to as well. But Donald Trump, knowing that can only go so far as Republican senators continue to vote against him, posted this, and it's what led to Lindsey Graham's meltdown. A few days ago, Donald Trump wrote on Truth Social that Republicans should be ashamed of the senators that just voted with Democrats in an attempt to take away powers to fight and defend the United States of America. Donald Trump then listed off those senators and say that they should never, of course, hold office again. So Donald Trump, whose threats have fallen pretty flat in everything that he's done recently, thinks that this is going to change that all, that he can threaten Josh Hawley and Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins, which, go ahead, please. I hope she loses. She's going to lose to Graham Plattner, so that'll be great. But it's not just Donald Trump who is now threatening his Republican colleagues. Lindsey Graham is also breaking down on air. Donald Trump's threats have Lindsey Graham losing his mind, and that's why he said this and followed it up with a really frightening post.
Ron.
The War Powers Act was passed in 1973 by a bunch of liberal Democrats. It's a power grab by the Congress against the commander-in-chief. Every president since 1973 has rejected the idea that Congress can substitute our judgment for theirs. So what these five are good friends. They're creating a situation where you have 535 commander-in-chiefs, not one. There's never been a court case in the history of the country where a military operation was terminated by the Supreme Court because Congress didn't approve. There have been 130 military operations by the commander-in-chief without congressional approval. So here's my point. You're creating a disaster for the country. If a member of Congress doesn't like what the president's doing as commander-in-chief militarily, cut off funding for that operation. We have power of the purse. You can do that. If you think the president doing something illegally, you can impeach him. But we can't have a situation where Congress becomes commander-in-chief. That would be a disaster. This is an unconstitutional power grab. To my colleagues, you're doing a lot of damage. You're emboldening our enemies. You're restricting President Trump. Unconstitutionally sound, doing a lot of damage. Stop it.
Senator, over the weekend, you tweeted about
Can I add one thing, one last thing?
Yes.
I've been a military lawyer for 33 years. I was a judge, advocate in the Air Force. I was a prosecutor, defense attorney, military judge. I feel comfortable talking about this. What you're doing is wrong. Go ahead.
Senator.
Lindsey Graham also posted on Twitter, my advice to the commies running Cuba and oppressing its people, call Maduro and ask him what to do. If you can get through, that is. If I were you, I'd be looking for a new... I don't get it. So Lindsey Graham is telling the commies down in Cuba, oppressing their people, that if they don't stop, Donald Trump, who is sending his armed thugs door to door, ripping people out of their houses, out of their cars, shooting them as they try to drive away for no reason, murdering them, let's be clear, that guy, Donald Trump, will go after the oppressive governments that Lindsey Graham doesn't like because they're oppressing their people. And Donald Trump will do that by bypassing the Congress and the Constitution and international law. Stop being a dictator, or Donald Trump will be more of a dictator. Disregard the law, disregard the Congress, disregard the Constitution, and waste our money liberating Cuba, whatever that means, so Marco Rubio can have another job to not do. Is that the argument that Lindsey Graham is presenting? And also to say that it's a bunch of liberals who, back in the 70s, because why would we even in the 70s, what was going on in the 70s that would, maybe lead an average American to question the government and the war that it was carrying out? What could have possibly been happening in the 70s? How many tens of thousands, 100,000 young men did we send to die? Was there a war? I can't remember. I didn't go to school or watch Star Wars. Lindsey, it was after Vietnam. Do you not think that maybe we should look back at the history of pointless, endless, nonsensical, illegitimate war and say, maybe we shouldn't allow the president and fucking genocidal Henry Kissinger in the form of Lindsey Graham, I guess, with fewer friends, I guess that is what Lindsey Graham is, to dictate foreign policy and get people killed and get us into unnecessary global conflicts. What are you talking about, a bunch of sissy liberals in the 70s after Vietnam? I think they were right. We made a couple of movies about it. If you don't want to go back and read the history books, or watch a great Ken Burns documentary, or take the class that I just wrapped up in school 7 months ago, Lindsey. I know the education system's not great in good old South Carolina, and that's no disrespect to South Carolina, because I will speak in this voice for the rest of the episode if I have to address you this way, Lindsey. Come on, Lindsey. What are we doing? Well, Lindsey, I know you just want to be hanging out. Now I'm getting a little Louisiana. There's a twinge. I was hanging out, did a video with Tim Miller today with the Bulwark. Go check that out. But come on now, Lindsey. Lindsey, I know you just want to be down in South Carolina, down in Charleston, maybe doing a little antiquing. Lindsey, I know you love vintage lamps and men. Come on, Lindsey. You don't want to go to war. You want to find yourself a nice fella, don't you, Lindsey? Come on. Come on now, Lindsey. I believe in you. Okay. That's the end of that. This guy's a freak. Let's be real. Lindsey Graham is a war-crazed freak. So much so that even Tucker Carlson, who I hate that I'm increasingly quoting on this show, asked one of his guests, hey, don't you notice that there's this trend of closeted, gay, Republican, war-crazed, maniac senators? And his guest is like, what? What are you talking about? Lindsey Graham, Tim Scott, down in South Carolina. I love South Carolina, y'all. I love it. I don't love Lindsey, though. What I do love, again, I hope this voice is okay. What I do love down in South Carolina is going to Cookout. If you haven't been to Cookout, it's much better than Lindsey Graham, and it doesn't want to get us into an endless war. Cookout is fantastic. Get a Reese's milkshake. It's a good time. It's going to hang at Cookout. But back to Lindsey. This is a deranged individual who wants to cede his job to Donald Trump. That's what he's advocating. He's saying, I don't want the Senate, the only thing that I have in my life that gets me close to feeling whole, right? Because Lindsey Graham is an empty person. I'm going off on Lindsey today. I hope y'all are okay with that. I think you probably are, considering Lindsey Graham. But Lindsey says, the only thing that I have going for me in my life, because I'm so vapid, is that I'm a U.S. Senator, and I want to make that position less powerful and give it to the reality TV show host. Remember when Donald Trump was trying to get his big ugly bill through the Senate? And there was a little bit of consternation, and Lisa Murkowski ultimately worked out a deal to make sure that Alaska was taken care of, and then Alaska wasn't taken care of. Do you know how Donald Trump got Lindsey Graham on board with that bill, aside from the fact that he's a sycophant? They were golfing and said, hey, Lindsey, how about you go pick out something from the pro shop at a Trump golf course? That's what got him. Really? Oh my God, it's so embarrassing. That's what got Lindsey Graham to sign off. Something from the pro shop. This is the same Lindsey Graham who, whenever he's with Donald Trump, is like booed mercilessly by MAGA crowds. People hate you, Lindsey. They hate you. You're not like Cookout, okay? You're not like the beautiful beaches of South Carolina. Great surf. Always get stung by jellyfish, though. It's probably a seasonal thing. People do not like Lindsey Graham. And he is advocating to lose power in governing, to give it to Donald Trump, because he will give him a hat and an attaboy. That is so pathetic. But that's who these people are. They are pathetic. And they are war crazed, and they want to waste your tax dollars. But we should not let them. We're going to call it out on this show. If you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. If you stuck around to the end, drop your blue heart in the comments.